Well, happy Saturday, everybody. This is rather a special day, special occasion. We don't normally broadcast on Saturday, but we're doing a Saturday special edition today, episode of The Today Show. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, your host. And yesterday, believe it or not, we had intermittent internet in a very large area of our province. And I know this has happened in other provinces too. So I couldn't figure it out. I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I didn't pay my bill. And then I thought, I checked out. Oh yeah, I did. I always do. And so it was very difficult to broadcast. So we started the show and then we decided to close it down and redo the show today because our guest, Sylvia Somerville, was available for today. It's a beautiful, hot, sunny day here in Alberta. And unusual temperatures, just like California down there, it's burning up. Wow. And I don't know, whatever the weather is in California, we seem to get the same kind of weather. If it's cooled off down there, it cools off up here. So we're pretty close, I guess, on the coast. And that's kind of how things go. But never mind wasting time talking about the weather, because we have so much information that we want to share with you from our guest. A good friend of mine, and she was here this time last year. And my niece was married last year in September. And Sylvia took my husband and I to the park, and we had a beautiful photo taken. That was a year ago. I can't believe it. And I thought Sylvia was never going to go home. She just came, and then she flew home and had her eye appointment and flew back. And oh my gosh, she was here for the fall. It was beautiful. And I really missed her when she left. So I'm really happy that she has also moved and is really happy and comfy where she is. So let's just not waste any more time and bring her to the stage. Good morning, Sylvia.
Good morning, Laurie. Fantastic to be on the show on a Saturday, something different.
Yeah, a special episode.
Right.
And we're going to do some special episodes in season 2. We're going to have some 2-hour episodes with a panel of guests, and we've got some great ideas lined up for the fall. So everybody fall in and watch the show. Right now we're streaming live on my Facebook page, Laurie Davis Facebook page. Also streaming live on our 2 YouTube channels, Laurie Davis Show Host, 5 Minutes to No Limits. And also we'll be streaming on other platforms as they get put up there from our esteemed colleague and leader, Jay Stoyan in Toronto, Canada. So you're listening and watching the Disability Channel, and this is a special Saturday episode of The Today Show. Sylvia, we want to, all those beautiful artifacts behind you, and you told me one time that you didn't pay for any of them. Would you like to just give an example of what you did to get one of those artifacts from Africa to bring it home before we get into your story?
Absolutely. But I got most of them back in the 70s and 80s. And back then they had a lot more villages that were easily accessible, tribal villages compared to nowadays. We would go into the villages because I wanted pictures. I wanted stories. I want to know what's really happening, not what people tell me. If I'm going to write it, I want to know it's a fact. So we'd go in and for example, the Zulu Shield, that was in Zululand, and it was on a place called Ghost Mountain. Great story there. And I thought, wonder what I'd have to do. I said to my friends who were working in South Africa, I said, can you ask him if there's any way I can get that spear in his battle shield? Like, is that possible? And he spoke to him in whatever, Zulu or whatever. And the lady standing beside him, now she's like the tribes, nothing on her except a little patch on the bottom. And she comes over and she kind of pulls on my blouse. And Dave says, she wants your blouse. And I said, oh, they'll give me that if I give them my blouse? And he says, yeah. So back then I'm younger and a lot different type of body. So it's embarrassing. I just whipped off the blouse. gave it to him. I mean, so I'm in a blouse. She's got nothing on, right?
Right.
Open the trunk, and I took another blouse out, and she does this. So she got 2 blouses, but I got a Zulu battle spear, their shield, and the thing they knocked them out with.
Right.
So that's what we did. I just traded things.
Yeah. You bartered. That's amazing. That's a cute story. That's a cute story. Okay. So we know that you've been writing. I think you probably came out of your mother's womb writing a poem of some sort. But why don't you share with us a little bit about the early days of when you started writing, and you were pretty young. Over to you.
Yes, I was 6 years old when I started writing. And what I thought was a bad thing turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I was partially deaf, still am, in the left ear. And, teacher would ask you questions and I'd answer them incorrectly because I didn't hear what she said exactly. Kids were making fun of me, calling me an idiot. Nobody wanted me on their baseball team. And I was kind of, I think kids still do that today.
Oh, yes.
If there's, even if it's an invisible disability like hearing loss and vision problems, nobody can see that disability. So they don't realize people are trying their best with these challenges, but still they can't use. So anyway, I started drawing pictures of animals and writing little stories where an animal might have one ear or something had happened to him, but it didn't matter. They would all help him out with what he needed. If he couldn't catch his own food, then the other animals would catch it for him. And it was kind of the world I dreamt at 6. It would be nice, I was accepted. Of course, I got accepted in older years, but that's where it began. And I'll just add from that came a little poem I wrote. And my dad saw it because I always showed my dad and mom things I was doing. And he submitted it to the newspaper, to this column called Wit, Wonder, Wisdom. And it was actually in the newspaper at 7 years old.
Whoa, you were published.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit, because I've known Sylvia quite well now. We lived with each other, and that's when you get to know people, when they live with you. That's when you really do. But I know a lot of your story and your history, but there's still things I don't know for sure. But I do know what happened at bedtime when you were a little. You want to share that?
Yes, at bedtime, parents go in and they read their children bedtime stories. But my mom and dad realized very early that I was creative and I had this great imagination, so they were going to encourage me to use it. When they come into my bedroom, they might say, tell me a story about a snowflake, or tell me a story about a bear, or whatever. And my mom said, no hesitation. I just start talking, and there was the story.
Wow.
Didn't matter the topic. I just had the story.
Wow. Well, you must have really enjoyed, English, language arts, whatever they call it now, when you were in school. That was probably your favorite subject, wasn't it?
It was. And when you talk about English composition, I made a lot of money in high school.
Oh, I bet.
There were kids who didn't like to write.
Right.
So I was writing all their assignments and writing it a little different each time.
Oh, my goodness. For sure. So then you proceeded to grow up, and you got married and you had a family. And tell us a little bit about that era where you owned and operated your own publishing company. I'd love you to share about the periodicals. That was terrific.
Right. When my first book came out in 1977, it was called Tribulum, and it did become a bestseller. And I worked as a correspondent at the time for a newspaper, and I did not like the fact that I believe that news should be news and it should be told exactly as it happened. But it turns out a lot of it is not told, let's put it that way. And I didn't like that. So I thought to myself, I'm going to start my own little periodical. And my periodical will be all good news. It'll be about the community, and it'll be telling exactly what's happening. So I talked to my friends about it, and because most of them are business people, and they said, "Well, what do you know about that?" I said, "Nothing." "Well, how are you going to do something if you don't know anything about it?" And I just said, "Oh, we'll see." And I said no more. So I went home and I made a mock-up copy of what it would look like. I put in stories that were already taking place, things in the community. I put in photos. I was out taking photos, designed ads, different prices. I went out in the community and I got advertising. It was going to be a free periodical, but I had to have money to support, printing it and make a profit. So a few of them were a little bit apprehensive about investing. So I told them, I said, advertise with me, give me a minimum 6 month, contract. If when the first one comes out, you don't like it, or there's something you just don't like about it, that's fine. You don't have to pay. So I went out on a limb there, but I thought, they don't know me. They don't know what I'm qualified. I didn't even know if it would sell, but I said it would. Well, it turned out great. And in about, I think it was about 10, 12 years down the road, I was putting out 10,000 issues a month. Would you like to see just a couple brief ones?
Yes. Yes, I've never seen it.
Oh, I just grabbed a few out here.
This would all be before technology.
Oh, yes,
that
definitely.
we have today. Look at that. The Chippewa Times, free. Please take one.
And they were all different stories depending on what was going on in the community.
Beautiful.
Whoops.
Yeah, nice.
So that's what we did. And there was a thing when we had a disability issue in Chippewa. So at the bottom, you'll see a beautiful young man.
Yes. Hold it up a
had
little
a disability, and I put him on the front page.
Oh, wow. Just beautiful.
And when James Cameron came to town, that's another long story.
Well, I think you should share the long story of to let our audience know just exactly what you were willing to do to get a story when Dan Aykroyd came to town.
Oh, definitely.
That is a great story.
I knew they were filming Blues Brothers 2000 along the Chippewa Creek. It was a scene where the taxi gets driven right into the river. The only problem was it was a closed set. I talked to everybody I could think of, even the mayor trying to get a pass to get in there, right? No, it's closed set. You can't be there. That's okay. So that day, early morning, I went, and I lived in the area, of course. So I knew how to get in there, and I drove and parked my car in the bush where no one would see it if they were driving by, checking or whatever. I walked through the bush, and I came out onto the road where the trailers were. And of course, big trailers are parked both sides of the road. And I thought, okay, now you're here. What are you going to do? I didn't really have a plan. So I just started walking between the trailers. People are passing me, and I'm walking like I belong there, and I'm supposed to be there. And while I'm walking, I'm thinking, so, okay, come on, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I approached the trailer that said executive producer. The door was open a crack. I thought, okay. So I just knocked on the door, and a voice from inside, a lady shouts, and she said, yeah, come on in. So I went in. She invited me in, and I sat down there by the table right by the door, and she comes out from the back, and she says, who are you? So I said who I was, Chippewa Times, publisher, blah, 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 author. I told her who I was, and she says, well, you can't be here, I can call the police. And I don't know, I just started, the gift of gab, trying to get around the point that you are wrong and you're wrong.
Right.
So then she says, wow, have you met John Landry's the producer? And I said, no, I just got here. She walks me, and then she said to me, I had a camera, and she said, you have to hide that camera. She said, or I'm in big trouble. So I just put it down my blouse. Of course, I was out like, But who cares? We're walking along. We meet John Landry's, and she told him, what I was there for, who I was, and he said, I can have you arrested. How did you get in here? I said, I walked through the bush. Well, when I said that, Dan Aykroyd, he was standing there. James Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were standing there with John Landry's, and Dan Aykroyd comes over to me, he puts his arm around my shoulder, and he kissed me on the cheek, and he says to John Landry's, he says, hey, she's Canadian. We get what we want.
Oh,
Said, give her the story.
wow.
I don't know what happened. We talked and whatever, and then James Belushi come. Now I got like James Belushi and Dan Aykroyd with their arm around my shoulder. What's Landry's going to do, right?
Right.
He just says,
arrest you?
Yeah. He says, what do you want? And I was telling him what I want, front page, blah, blah, blah. And I got it. And when I left, Dan Aykroyd said again, he said, sweetie, he said, you're going to go places. You got what it takes.
Oh, my goodness. That's such a great story.
Oh, I loved it. I got invited. Yeah, I got invited to their send-off. That was the end of their filming.
Yes.
In a hotel nearby. So they said, just come. And Dan Aykroyd gave me his script with all his notes, writing in the sites and the aisle, whatever. It was pretty cool.
Pretty cool is right. That's amazing.
It just means if you want something, you go get it.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit, because I'm the same way. Somebody wanted to throw me out of a building one time, and I said, you just go right ahead, because I've been thrown out of a bigger building by better people. Right?
Yep.
And you just keep knocking on the door. So let's talk now about your books. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, let's talk about the books that you've created and published, and the ones that you've written and you're writing and you're going to write. And we'll be right back after this 30-second break. And this is where I keep saying, if you want to promote your books, an event coming up, your business, we've got a heck of a deal right now for people who want to come on the show and have you be part of our show by advertising. And I should probably have Sylvia doing this job, because she obviously knew how to get advertising for that periodical. Really? Okay. Maybe I'm the wrong person. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and you're watching a very special Saturday episode of the Today Show. And we normally don't broadcast live on Saturdays, but we just couldn't let the week go by. We had intermittent internet. That's why they call it intermittent. Yes. Yesterday, and couldn't complete our broadcast. So we decided to do a show this morning. And without calling each other or coordinating our outfits, how did we do? Like we're in the fall season here now. All right. So let's talk about your books and how they, progressively were written. Was it from, let me ask you this question first. What inspires you to write a book or a story? What is the inspiration that is necessary? Is it based on true life? Is it stuff you've made up? What do you like? Let's have you share some things around that, because that would be important. Coming from somebody who has 32 books under their belt. Over to you, Sylvia.
The majority of my books, I'd say 90%, are true life. I do sometimes change the names because it's just better that way. But it's all actual things that have happened. And the reason I write is I've had a lot of challenges in my life. Nothing I couldn't overcome. Nothing you can overcome. And I figure if I could put these stories down and on paper and people read them, so many people out there are afraid, they're going through things, they get disappointed, they get depressed. And I am hoping that I relate to the words in my books as seeds that I want to plant, hoping that they're going to blossom. Someone's going to read the book and say, you know what? She got through that. I can too. Like, I want to encourage people just because things are going bad. And trust me, I've seen a lot of those days. We all have.
Right.
And you just have to persevere. Sometimes it's really hard. Like when my husband of 58 years marriage had passed away, I was devastated because that year I had lost my mom, my aunt, my best friend, my husband, and my 23-year-old grandson, all within a period of 6 months.
Wow.
It was,
Whew.
I never thought I would get as down as I got. Mm-hmm. And the way I express how far down I was is to say, I had to reach up to touch bottom. Mm-hmm. But you know what? You have to, a lot of people don't tell others when they need help. And I think that's the biggest thing because in the beginning I kept saying, oh no, I'm fine. Yeah, everything's cool. Yeah, I'm fine. When it wasn't. And when I finally decided confiding in friends or family, and you know what, you're never going to get through anything, including life. We all need to have friends. We all need to have a confidant, someone we can speak honestly to, and it's going to stay just with you, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's why I write. I want to tell others. My book, Lost Behind the Wind Echoes, I had so many emails about that saying, thank you. I didn't think, I thought I was going crazy. Mm-hmm. But it tells you it's okay to cry. It's okay to get mad. Like, I don't think there's a person on this earth that doesn't get really, really ticked off sometimes.
Well, 8.5 billion or 9 billion people, and nobody is going to escape without some kind of loss, tragedy, setback. That's life.
It is.
But you took a lot of hits in a short period of time.
I did. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's where all my stories come from, especially my African books.
Okay.
When my first trip to Africa, I was just completely, it was just so beautiful. And there is sunsets and sunrises are beautiful anywhere in the world. But when you wake up and step out of your tent, we stayed in tents in the 70s and 80s. You did walking safaris. They don't do that so much anymore. But you step out of your tent and it's kind of foggy and cool. And the sun is rising and you're listening to the wildlife come to life and singing. And I don't know, there's just nothing like it. It's just absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yes. So you do write poetry, you write narrative, you illustrate. I have one of your books here. I'm going to show. This is a children's series, and I think we probably sold some this morning because I have a new friend, and she introduced me to her son, who's in grade 3. So he's just ripe and ready for this particular series. And I'd like to mention that, you do all of your own artwork. So let's talk about the work. Let's talk about the drawings and the illustrations and the covers that you've created. Because you don't just write poetry and narrative, you also illustrate. Like to have those, my experience has been, well, I can write, but I can't draw a stick person, so I'll have to hire somebody to get my book cover done. No. You, my dear, do it all. Look at this. I love this. Isn't that cool? How do you feel when you look at that and know that you created that?
Actually, I've never looked at it from your point of view, but looking at it from that point of view, I think, you know what? You're pretty cool.
Yeah. You're pretty darn talented, I'd say. And so And I love this page. This is my favorite page because I've read this 100 times. I read this to myself. When the animals all got their glasses, that's when they realized that elephants actually do have hair. How cool. What a great ending. Isn't that sweet? So yeah, you'll have some sales today because I know if my client said she's going to do that, she will do it. That's the kind of woman she is. Does what she says.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. You're welcome.
That is an 8-book series.
Yes. And available
online. The last 4 are not available yet for a couple more weeks. But
okay.
The first 4 are available. If you go to Amazon and just key in books by Sylvia Somerville, everything comes up.
Wonderful.
My books of poetry, my adventure stories, my books that just want to give a message, and the kids' books. I have to say, kids' books are my favorite.
Oh, I can see why. They'd be my favorite.
I have fun doing it.
Yes. And your most recent book, let's talk about Jigsaw, because you worked on that for a long time and it came into fruition. So do you want to talk about what that book is about?
Jigsaw, again, is a real life story. It's actually my story. And it begins in 1942 when I was born in our farmhouse in the middle of a really bad blizzard. And my dad was away in World War II. He was overseas fighting. And when he came home, now he told me stories, not too many, but he told me stories of the war. And he said, the one that really resonated with me was when they came out of the trenches and they were heading towards the front line. He was special forces, so they didn't have dog tags and things like this. They would paratroop in behind enemy lines and do whatever it was they were to do. So they came to a little village. I believe it was in Italy, but I don't want to say for certain because I'm not sure. So I don't give you a country. And he said they knew something was wrong because no one was moving. But to save time, the part that really touched me, he said, while they were scanning the village before going down, he said they saw a lady come running out of a building carrying a little baby. I get chills thinking of it. And he said the soldiers followed and shot her. She fell, obviously dead, and the baby, the little child, fell down too, and the soldiers shot it. Mm. And then he said they saw these men and boys came out of the bush or somewhere nearby, and they were picking up stones, throwing them at these guys with machine guns. So obviously they were all massacred.
Yeah.
And that's the one main story I put in there because people don't realize, war just nobody wins in a war. And it's to think of our men that went over there, my dad included, he died at 45 from having shrapnel in his head they couldn't remove. But I'm getting off track when I get thinking about
that's fine, because my dad was a veteran also, and my dad was in the Signal Corps, which is probably where I get my love of communication. And his job, he and another guy, the only story Dad ever told about that, he and the other guy would take turns going to the front lines with the messages, right? Because that's how they did it. And this one particular night, Dad said, oh gosh, it's my turn to go to the lines. I'm pretty tired. And the other guy said, no, Fred, I'll do this one. I'm okay. You have a nap, whatever. And that guy was blown up on that motorcycle and killed. And, that could have been my dad. I mean, they just handled life and death like it was any minute, right? So that's why today our dads would be very upset with the way things are going, because there's this huge entitlement mentality going on with our kids and society, and everybody thinks the government should solve all their problems. And it's just amazing to me. And we don't realize the sacrifices that were made for our freedom. And we're at the back end of that generation now that can talk about it, because the next generation doesn't want to talk about it.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So Jigsaw, so it's your life, it's your family, it's your what happened to you. Is there another particular part of that book you'd like to share?
It will, the book only takes you up to where my dad died at 45. And it was meant to just focus on life in those days, but basically focusing on him and the fact that he gave up so much so that we would have democracy and freedoms. And now people are just
disrespecting that.
Yeah, and they don't seem to want to fight for anything.
No. All right. Well, we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, well, let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Let's talk about the fact that you are now a mentor when it comes to writing. And a mentor is someone who has invested well over 10,000 hours in their field of endeavor. And the joy that it brings you when you help other people write their books and why you want to do that. Okay, so we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. You're watching the Today Show, a special episode on Saturday. This is really interesting because we don't normally do a live broadcast on Saturday, but I could not see the week go by and not have our show that was supposed to happen yesterday with Sylvia. Because of the internet, we weren't able to produce it. So today we're here. And one of the beautiful things that happened for me last year is that Sylvia came and stayed with me for quite a little bit of time. We really got to know each other. We became girlfriends. And one of the things that came up was the fact that she's done so much work in the area of writing. She certainly could be mentoring others. So we started. And let's talk, Sylvia, why you would love to mentor others to help get their books out.
You know, every one of us has a story to tell. Everybody. A lot want to put it down in print, but they don't know how. They haven't a clue how to get started. Now, my personal experience, I had struggled for years trying to get that first book, that first article. I know how hard it is. It was forever. And for mentoring, when I worked as a correspondent, I only got that job because I had my first book came out and it was a bestseller. So now the publisher assumed is the key word, I had a university degree. Well, I didn't. As I told you the story before, I wanted to be a journalist. That was my dream. And I ended up being a journalist and a photojournalist as well. So when I started, I was having to do a lot of rewrites. It's different writing for a paper and writing for a book. So I turned to a very seasoned reporter behind me in the newsroom, and I said to her, I wonder if you could help me with something. Sweet lady, she said, let's go for coffee. You don't talk about those things here.
Oh.
When we went for coffee, and her first question was, what university did you graduate from? I said, I didn't. I said, I only have high school. After high school, I went to work and to help earn a living, and I still kept writing and was getting books done. But I said, I'm just high school. Wow, she laughed. She said, don't ever tell a soul. Anybody asked, she said, talk your way around it and say nothing.
Right.
She was my mentor. She gave me books from her university course and the things you get about how to write for a newspaper, things like that. And after that, it was a breeze. But
wow.
What would I have done without her?
Right.
She mentored me just because I asked for help. So when you take a course or sign up to take a writer's course, you're asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be there to help you. Put your words together, make your words come alive, bring your story to life so people can see the picture. As they're reading the book, they should be seeing it in their, envisioning it in their mind. And my hope for everyone I mentor is to see them have a bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
And the last session we did, oh my goodness, all of the girls that were in it, they've all got bestsellers.
Yes, we do.
That you just got to finish that book. And
That's
like,
right.
even though the course is done, I'm here. Email me, call me. I will help you with it. I will edit it for you. I want to see you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about for me. I just love helping people.
Right.
Aside from mentoring in writing, in my younger years, I counseled teenagers at a drop-in center when LSD was very popular.
Tell us about that.
I just wanted to be there to help those young kids. They were just lost. So many kids come from families where either they don't have enough and the parents are working all the time, or they have too much. And it's just given to them without making them understand you have to earn your money. You have to work at a career. You have to build yourself into whatever it is you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for 35 years, and I loved every minute of it.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm the same way. We're cut from the same fabric, even though our clothes are even almost matching. But when I was a teenager, and I was always for the underdog, so to speak.
Yep.
Oftentimes, I would bring a kid home for a meal or whatever. And I heard my dad say to my mom one meal, he looked at my mom and he said, "Where does she find these people?" The people that need the help. But I've been that way my whole life as well. Yeah. And spent a lot of time parenting adults and supporting adults. And yeah, it's been, would I have done anything different? No. I was a teacher for a long time. And when I could no longer handle the bureaucracy, I thought, I'm going to go do my own thing. So that's what I've done. And broadcasting has always been just a hobby. And got on the air very early on in the day, about 25 years ago. So things happen for many, many reasons, many, many reasons. And you don't realize that when you're doing that, something that you did 20 years ago was actually preparing you for today.
Absolutely.
Right.
When you talk about helping people, when my son was in university, as we know, it's very expensive.
Yes.
And I was working for the summer in a souvenir store, as well as printing my periodical. I was working like 18, 20 hours a day, whatever. It was only 4 or 5 months in the souvenir business. And this young couple from war-torn Slovenia came into my shop. And they had been trying to contact relatives in Toronto. They couldn't get a hold of them. They'd been sleeping in the park. So I said to them, come back here at 5 o'clock. And I said, you go home with me. I took them home, beautiful young kids, they were like in their 20s. And they stayed with us for a month. And I kept trying to help them locate people they were trying to find, which they didn't. And their visa was running out, so they had to go back home. These kids, I'm telling you, my husband and I would go to work, come home, the house was clean, the meal is cooked, the grass was cut.
Wow.
It was like they were very industrious, and they would have been a benefit to Canada, right? And we tried to sponsor them, but our income just wasn't high enough. They wouldn't allow it, right?
Right.
So they went back to Slovenia.
Mm-hmm.
About a month after that, we had a phone call from, it was Janko and Moitza was their names. We had a phone call from Janko, the gentleman, and he said, bad news. He said, Moitza drove over a landmine going to work today. She's dead.
Oh.
And like that just bothers me that some of the young people that they're very energetic, they want to work. But
Absolutely.
For whatever reason, it doesn't work. But we tried.
Right.
And our friends were saying to us, are you crazy? You don't know these people. They're going to rob you.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't care.
That's right. They can't take anything I can't replace.
That's right.
Right.
And like you, I think you have a sense about people.
Mm-hmm.
We have that sense that tells us no, no, or it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just me. I just like with the writing now, that's my main focus. I just want to help people get their message out there, write their book, write their bestseller,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll just keep writing.
That's right. That inspires me to get on board again with my 100 Shades of Dysfunction.
I sent you the cover hoping it would do that.
Yeah, I love the cover. So I'm in the process. I have done a bit more. You'd be proud of me. But last year, a year ago, May, we were evacuated due to the wildfires, and we were out of our home for 2 weeks. And we were in this little campground with friends staying in their little trailer, 4 adults and 4 dogs. And in about 45 minutes, I came up with 100 shades. I called it 100 Shades of Dysfunction. And I didn't know there were 100 ways to be dysfunctional. So I thought that's a worthy publication. I think that would people would benefit from reading that. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen some of it, and my goodness, and it's all factual.
It is.
And
It is.
I don't think a lot of people realize what it really is.
No, not at all. And it's just the same with my work on self-worth. I was just sharing with my new client there that 32 years ago, when I came out the first time with talking about self-worth and wanting to find out information, there was no book about self-worth. There were no publications, no articles, nothing. So I knew I was going to have to create all that. So 32 years later, we have all the goods. It's like a one-stop shop. You want to learn how to write a book? Let us know. We've got the person. You want to know about finance? We've got the man. You want to know about health and wellness? We have the girls. Like, we have such a beautiful team around us right now. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm just hoping I'm just hoping a lot of people will come to our new session, because can you imagine how great it will make them feel? No more dysfunction.
Well, it gets rid of some of it because you get to write about it. And that's the point that I also would like to make and have you comment on is it's a healing process for a lot of people. What do you know about that?
My book, written in, I think it was 2015, 2016, it was therapeutic for me, and I did it all in verse. It's called Lost Behind the Wind Echoes, because I was lost. This was during the time my husband was battling cancer. He battled it for 12, 15 years. And again, the government does not pay for everything. We sold our house. We used all the money from our house, all our life savings with his battle for life. And you know what some people say nowadays, don't you regret it? No.
No.
To me, life and love is worth anything. You can't, it's not materialistic. It's vital in life. You have to love, and you have to care, and you have to have compassion. Everything else is just materialistic. It comes and it goes.
Yeah, and we're not going to be taking it with us.
Absolutely. I've never seen a Brinks truck following a hearse.
Me either. My dad used to say that all the time.
But that's why when I wrote Lost Behind the Wind Echoes, I did it in verse, because some of it's really heavy, and then you have the good parts. Mm-hmm. If you wrote that in a book, and that kind of explains why there are different genres of books. There's a format to write a book, and depending what the book is about, how you're going to write it. If you just write the book, and there's 18 elements, vital elements.
Yes. I only knew 3 of those 18 things. And I thought I was a big smart, but Yes.
If you don't know those and how to use them, like picking what type of book, what the format's going to be, etc., you need that. It's vital. Yes. And we know that. We know what they need.
And we have secrets. And so you have to come to a retreat with Sylvia. Now, Sylvia works one-on-one. So if you'd like one-on-one coaching, she has 12 coaching sessions that she uses to share those 18 ingredients. We were worked in a group. I really enjoyed the group because I enjoyed hearing other people's stories. So we got to read each other our passages that we had written in our home assignments, etc. And you are an amazing mentor. I
Well,
mean,
thank
the
you.
customer service that came along with that was just incredible. We could contact you out of hours. We could email you. We could send you a sample of something and you'd review it. So if anybody is interested in attending a writer's workshop with Sylvia, here's how you get a hold of her. And like I said, I told her, I'm leaving the nest. You continue, but we'll be here to support you and help to make it happen. So contact Sylvia if you have a book and you want it done properly. Here you go, and in short order too. It's not going to take you 5 years, right? So thank you for that. We're going to take a little break, Sylvia, and then we're going to come back and wrap up the show. And thank you for all of that beautiful information. This is where we are looking for advertisers and sponsors. We have a heck of a deal on right now. And if you want to appear on the show as part of our sponsorship here at the Disability Channel, we would appreciate that. And you can say a lot in 30 seconds. Watch this. I said, when I'm watching this little break, I'm going, is it ever going to be over? Welcome back, everyone. You've been watching the Today Show, a special Saturday edition with the beautiful Sylvia Somerville. And Sylvia, I'd just like to share this with the audience and you too, because you may not be aware of it. But 20 years ago, our channel founder, Jay Stoyan, wrote a book. And he wrote a book, The Life of an Irish Street Gang Member, because that was part of his journey. And he's now our executive producer and he owns the Disability Channel. But he has been approached and I believe has been funded to turn that book into a television series.
Wow.
Wow. Now, did he ever dream of that? We didn't even have television series 20 years ago, but he has been approached and he's met with all the big people and yeah, so and the book is called Flanagan's, and the series will be called Flanagan's. So never mind, Sylvia, we'll probably be in the series because they're going to need actors and actresses to do bit parts, right? And I told him he could put me in the series and I'd be the girl behind the bar serving the drinks because I know how to do that and I have my license to do that here in Alberta at least. So The Life of an Irish Street Gang Member. It's going to be really fun. And
You
so,
also you
ahead.
also know how to do that with comedy.
Yes, I do. I do. I certainly do. Did stand-up comedy. That was the beginning of my professional career as a speaker, mentor, whatever. Yes, for sure. I even have the costumes, alter egos. I'm actually putting together a Larry King outfit because I want to do some shows in honor of those broadcasters who've passed on. So Larry King, Barbara Walters, these guys were all heroes of mine. You know how some people, musicians are their heroes or athletes are their heroes? My heroes were like Johnny Carson, people who were doing talk shows. I mentor, I watched that stuff for hours long before I ever was on the air. But I went, I want to grow up and be that. So I thought I'd get myself a blonde wig and do Barbara Walters sometime and Larry King. And I was also thinking of Johnny Carson. And of course, Phil Donahue just recently passed. So they all had their own different styles. Oprah Winfrey, of course, Ellen DeGeneres, they're still here with us, but everybody had their own style. But I have my own style, and I'm really glad about that. Over to you. What do you think?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic idea. And when you said that about all these stand-up comedians, pardon me, I remember when I told you I was about 10 or 12, and I used to love watching this black and white, on the little 12-inch screen, show called The Lineup back then. It was a police show.
Yes.
I sat down and I wrote a script for the show.
Mm-hmm.
I took the address off at the end with the credits. I don't know how I figured out. Dad must have helped me. And I mailed it in this 10 or 12-year-old kid's handwriting, saying it was a TV script and did they want to buy it?
Oh, my goodness.
But you know what, Kate? I didn't hear from the studio, but one of the actors, Tom Tully, who was the co-star, he actually wrote back to me. And for, I think it was 15, 16 years, we would write back and he'd say, send me your work, and he would critique it. I thought, I think people should realize celebrities are people too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They aren't on a pedestal and untouchable.
No. And two more people who passed away who were heroes of mine was Dr. Ruth, the sex therapist. Right. I could do her. I can do her, I can do Dr. Ruth, and I can tell you why you are not making love properly. And then here in Canada, we had Sue Johansson, who was a Canadian. She had a show. She never got her first show. I think she was 78, something like that. Yep. There's still hope for me, maybe. And she would get on the air and take calls from people, actual situations. And it was generally around their sex life. So she would take calls if a couple was having trouble in the bedroom. And she actually talked to them on the air, like told them what to do. I could do that. Because what happened with my writing? What happened with my writing?
With your writing, I would like to say a lot about it, but it is absolutely amazing. And I'm telling you, it's, wow, I wish I could talk about it on air, but I know we can't.
Well, sure we can, as long as we don't say any swear words. But when Sylvia would give us a passage to write, mine would always be some kind of slutty thing from a love novel or a romance novel about, boy meets girl across a crowded smoky bar. And this is what I ended up coming up with as I was in the retreat. I mean, I have some pretty serious stuff I can write about, but that's what kept coming back for me.
Especially when she was starting to get very warm.
Yes, exactly. We had so much fun. So here we are today. I'd like to do a Saturday special every now and again, because you know what? People are watching this because they're home today. They're not at work, so they can watch the show live. Super day to do a show. I want to do some specials too. This is season 2, so we've got a nice foundation built and a nice following. Some of our shows, many of our shows, because we send shows down to Your Home TV in the United States, and those shows get like 25,000 viewers an episode. So that's not too bad or shabby. We've only been on the air 4 months, and I'm pretty impressed by that. And plus we do 5 shows a week, Monday to Friday. And then I do a sports show with former NHLer Doug Smith. And now I've been approached by another sports guy for a show on football and hockey. It just keeps kind of going. They're seeing my work and they're going, hey, there's that balances out all the testosterone, right? So,
and Laurie, the reason I believe that we are successful and a lot of people like us are successful is we live what we preach. Mm-hmm. We don't just tell you how to do things and then we do something altogether different.
That's right.
What we know and try to help you with by mentoring, like with me for writing, we are what we think. And a lot of people recently have told me, you're still writing? Haven't you quit that yet? And I do have a couple of challenges, as you know. They said, isn't it time to just stop? I said, you know what? When I'm in my deathbed, I'm going to have my pen there writing something.
Here's what you're going to do with that orange blouse. You give it to Laurie because she really likes it. Well, somebody asked me the other day, aren't you going to retire ever? And I went, yes, I will. I'll be retired when I'm dead.
Absolutely.
And I'll have lots of time to sleep then. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's no,
So
no.
just live every day, guys. And um, it's easy to get into the dark places and in the ditch because life can hand out some pretty nasty stuff.
Oh yeah.
But there's always a way out. Just keep breathing. There's always a way out. And just enjoy what you're doing. Because when you get to that place where you're not enjoying what you're doing anymore, that becomes very stressful. And that's why we get sick, because we're stressed,
Absolutely.
right?
Like
Well, Sylvia, as usual, my girl, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for allowing us to share our stories, and look forward to being with you in person again soon. And we've had many, many great laughs together and times together. And I've just been completely blessed with your friendship and your professionalism and everything about you. So love you.
love you.
Okay, I guess we got to say goodbye now.
Bye bye.
Time's up.